This edition of the Cowboys Report is made possible by Manscaped. You can get 20% off and free shipping all of their top-of-the-line men's grooming products when you use promo code COWBOYS over at manscaped.com. ESPN has ranked the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL based on execs, coaches, and scouts voting. Dak Prescott was ranked number 9 among quarterbacks in this ranking, which I think feels about right. He was on 60% of the ballots in total, or around 60%. There might be some, rounding numbers in there, and was as high as number 7 on at least one voting list. Of course, unranked on other ones, but seemed to be a very popular 7 to 10 ranking, which again I think is about right. Now, we have talked a lot about Dak Prescott. I've said many a time he's a top 10 quarterback. The rest of the NFL consensus seems to agree with me. And remember, there are 2 types of people who are out there. One are the cool people. They are subscribed to the Cowboys Report. The type of person not subscribed to the Cowboys Report, well, they're lames, as long as they're Cowboys fans and not hate watching. I know you Eagles and Giants fans are out there. Hit that sub button, though, for more free Cowboys videos. Here are the top 10 rankings for ESPN. Patrick Mahomes is number 1. Joe Burrow is 2. Josh Allen 3. Aaron Rodgers 4. A little surprised Rodgers was that high given his age and the fact that he really wasn't that great last year. Herbert was 5. Hurts is 6. Lamar Jackson is 7. Trevor Lawrence is 8. Dak is number 9, ahead of Matthew Stafford. Look, I don't have a ton of complaints here. I think you can edit it a little bit if you want to. I think you're kind of picking nits a little bit of, I'm going to move Rodgers down. I'd probably move Hurts down a spot, if not 2 spots overall. I think you can argue Dak is maybe more 8, 7. Maybe you can push for 6 if you're expecting Rodgers to really regress this upcoming year and continue that maybe downward trend. But I do think in the end, Dak Prescott being a top 10 quarterback is the correct outcome. I have an impossible time saying, well, yes, there are issues with Dak's game. All the arguments against Dak are also present for other quarterbacks, and that's why Dak's not a top 5 guy for me, but he's a top 10 quarterback. The other honorable mentions here. Deshaun Watson, number 11. He was bad last year. He did not play good football. He also had missed a bunch of time. He's massage boy. And imagine the national outcry, and this goes for Justin Herbert too, if the Cowboys and Dak Prescott blew the type of lead that Deshaun Watson did against the Chiefs and Herbert did against the Jags in the playoffs. And we're like, okay, those guys are fine. What? Kirk Cousins is a top 15. I think 12 is actually right for Kirk Cousins, but he's not better than Dak. I don't see Dak checking down on 4th down in a playoff game. Jared Goff is, he's a fine starter. Derek Carr, Tua, okay, those guys are good. I think top 15 is right for them, but I wouldn't put him in the top 10. Others getting votes. I don't really know who put Daniel Jones in the top 10. That doesn't make any sense to me. He was not good enough last year to justify that. I'm actually glad to see Kyler down into the top 15. I don't think Kyler's that good. At least he hasn't been good so far. He's just kind of living off of the first-round pick hype as far as I'm concerned. We're going to go more in depth on this, plus a contract idea for Dak later on in today's show. But where do you rank Dak Prescott among NFL quarterbacks? Get those votes in for me in the comments section right now at the pinned comments. If the ad break comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and go vote. I do not consider Dak a top 5 quarterback. I think some of the valid concerns, the dings against him that aren't always equally applied is what stops him from being in that range. So anywhere in that 6 to 10-ish range, maybe you can go 11 or 12, whatever, actually feels about right. I think that's where Dak should be ranked, if I'm being objective and honest, among NFL quarterbacks. And I think this AFC executive does a pretty good job of summing up his game, by the way. He's been a top 10 quarterback for a few years now. Part of his game that was so great was the ability to run and throw more play action off that. They didn't have that as much with the weapons on the outside. But I'm not down on him. He's accurate. He can extend and make plays. He's elite in decision-making. And I would also add his pre-snap stuff, which might be partially what they're referring to in the decision-making stuff, is also really good. Just go back and watch a Cowboys game and look how often Dak Prescott is signaling something before the snap. They put a lot of weight on his shoulders, and it leads to good results. I know Dak is now in the media saying he's not going to throw 10 interceptions again. You know what I say to that? Dak can throw 12 interceptions if he throws for almost 4,500 yards and 37 touchdowns again. I'm actually okay with that. Dak does some of his best stuff in the middle of the field on those ripped throws over the middle that are much more dangerous, but I'm still okay with those. Dak, I think the AFC executive, whoever it is, I think he's got a good feel for it. Dak's been a top 10 quarterback for several years now. And there are, for whatever reason, some out there, some in national media, some Cowboys fans who disagree, and the goalposts as to why have changed each and every single year, as we'll get into here more in depth. But first, today's show is made possible by Manscaped. 20% off and free shipping when you use promo code COWBOYS over at manscaped.com. This summer, it's not about the size of the cannonball. It's about making a splash with our friends over at Manscaped. Prep for barbecue season by making sure your grill master has the hottest dogs the summer's ever seen. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is the innuendo coming through on that front? If not, let your meat speak for itself with Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0, the Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker 2.0, ball toner, ball conditioner, and the most comfortable boxers known to mankind. 20% off and free shipping when you use promo code COWBOYS over at manscaped.com. I would bet a good amount of money your quarterback and several members of your organization, player-wise, are using Manscaped, so you should too. 20% off and free shipping with promo code COWBOYS at manscaped.com. Links in the comments section and the description of today's show. Some of the arguments that I've heard over the years against Dak Prescott, I think they are not equally applied. And that's what kind of bothers me. In general, again, generalities, so not everybody, not everyone, but Dak tends to get more hate than most, in part because of his draft status. I think Kirk Cousins is the victim of this too, and just being the Cowboys quarterback. Some people hate the Cowboys so much, there's nothing that Dak can do that would make them good in his eyes. They will always hate on him. And my biggest issue across the board with NFL media is this. The critiques are not applied equally, and the goalposts move constantly. Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray have been trash in the playoffs, and it's never brought up in the same way it is for the only 2 bad games Dak's had in the playoffs. It's actually been good in most of them, but it's just ignore the good, focus on the bad. Dak was carried early in his career, even though the supporting cast has shuffled almost entirely in his time in Dallas. Yet Jalen Hurts gets a pass on that. Josh Allen turns it over a ton at a higher rate than Dak has done the past 2 years. Nobody cares. Deshaun Watson was terrible for a bad team, but he was great as there's MVP consideration when they couldn't win anything. Herbert and Watson blew massive playoff leads. It's not memed in the same way the Cowboys get it. And the goalposts move, right? Okay, Dak won early in his career. Okay, but where are the stats? Well, Dak has the stats. The defense is bad. Okay, well, he can't win. It's a stat pattern now. Where were the wins? Okay, well, now he's won a lot. He has the stats. Okay, but it was only against bad teams. And then they beat some really good teams, like last year, and it's okay, it was only against bad defenses. Okay, well, he beat some good defenses now, but he didn't beat the best defense and get to the championship game. Therefore, he's bad. And those arguments are fine for why he's not a top 5 quarterback, but they don't fly for he's actually straight up bad. He's not a top 10, not a top 15 guy, as I've seen on social media. And 1 year of interceptions means a turnover guy. It is inconsistent. The goalposts move constantly, and it's frankly never going to change unless he can win a Super Bowl. That's the only way to shut them up. It's not fair, but that is the reality of being the Cowboys quarterback, and it's also why a mentally tough guy like Dak Prescott is fit to handle it pretty well. So this is a question that I'm sure we'll have some issues with. Then we're going to get to a contract extension idea here. But do you like having Dak as the Cowboys quarterback? Y for yes, N for no. I will say it's probably only about maybe 10 teams. You want to go with some young guys you're excited about? It wouldn't take Dak over their current quarterback. But get your votes in. Y for yes, N for no. Part of this conversation now is on the extension side of it. The Cowboys have claimed they want to extend Dak Prescott this offseason, And Spotract actually put together a pretty massive extension idea, which I appreciate the effort that they put into it. My question here is, have the Cowboys learned their lesson? Because it's not easy being the Cowboys quarterback. It's also not easy if, for some reason, let's say maybe the owner throws you under the boat a couple times, or the head coach reveals some of your private conversations you didn't want to know out there, or you'll go up there and take the blame for the interception all the time. Dak can't be tagged next year, or not next year, in 2025. That gives him some leverage here. The current contract breaks down like this. Dak's cap hits have actually been incredibly manageable. This is the first year it's over $20 million, because if you just backload the deals until you're a bad team, it actually makes a lot of sense. The extension would bring down some of the numbers in 2024 and beyond and keep your top 10 quarterback under contract. We'll break down the extension here, but first, do you want to extend Dak Prescott? I am of the belief, at this stage in his career, we know what the Cowboys have. Top 10 quarterback, has some highs, will have some lows like everybody does, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's how quarterback play tends to work. You should know if you want him or not. I don't think you need to wait. But what do you guys want to do? E for extend, W for wait. Important to note the highest paid quarterbacks right now. And this list will change potentially as soon as a month or two, if not before then, when Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow get deals that probably exceed the $52 million per year price tag, which, depending on when Dak signs, would bump him out of the top 10 altogether, as he's currently tied with Daniel Jones, which is still kind of funny from that standpoint. So this is the proposed deal from Spotract. A 4-year extension, $200 million, an average of $50 million, and a guaranteed figure of $175 million. That's a practical guaranteed number, but again, Dak does have the leverage here since he can't be tagged, and the cap balloons to a pretty high number. Now, that $50 million price tag, I know there's sticker shock, but by week 1, Dak would not be among the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. He wouldn't be. He'd be behind Hurts, behind Burrow, behind Lamar, behind Rodgers, and behind Herbert. So that's actually a relatively fair deal. And if you could go less than that, I think that becomes team friendly. It puts him just above Russell Wilson money, basically. So the cap hits per year would then change to this. 26.63 this year. This is, again, based on the Spotract projections. 28.76 next year. 2025, you go $77 million. It's a restructure year. You take the money, push it off into the future. You could add some void deals after 2025, potentially, if you want to as well. It would cut the cap number that year by about half, give or take, and you could keep restructuring like you've been doing. The point of having the top 10 quarterback is to do what Dallas has done recently. Restructure that deal, push the money off into the future so you can still pay your other good football players. I get the price tag is a shocking one. That would actually be a pretty fair deal for all sides involved.